To one walking through the bustling market after a fruitful day of begging, Pio, a 14-year-old orphan, carried a content smile on his face. His bowl was filled with more food than he had hoped for, a sign that his luck was finally turning around. With determination in his eyes, he moved forward, envisioning a chance at a normal life ahead. As Pio journeyed toward his next nighttime location, his thoughts lingered on his past. But fate had something unexpected in store for him. A stranger with an enigmatic presence crossed his path, causing Pio's world to suddenly lose its vibrant colours. In the blink of an eye, he found himself in a dark and desolate place, all alone. Struggling to rise, he realized his strength was no match for the overwhelming despair that washed over him, tears and shivers consuming his fragile frame. Amidst his fear and confusion, Pio's memories came rushing back. Did the stranger have a connection to this grim situation? Pio pondered, uncertain of his captor's motives. Despite his own innocence and lack of animosity toward the stranger, Pio was trapped in this mysterious darkness, unable to fathom why. Drowning in a sea of emotions, Pio's grasp on reality slipped further away. In the suffocating darkness, time lost all meaning. He wept, the weight of his loneliness and terror bearing down on him. Hunger gnawed at his stomach, while the fear of losing his sanity became a tangible presence. Pio's worries seemed to merge, overwhelming him in a torrent of uncertainty. Gradually, a shift occurred within Pio. The raw fury he felt began to give way to acceptance. He questioned less why he was facing this torment and focused more on his will to endure it. Weak, his eyes swollen from tears and lips bloody from biting them, Pio sensed a change, an easing of his breath, a slight reawakening of sensation, a glimmer of hope. His strength slowly returned, and with it, a newfound clarity. As Pio's senses reawakened, he pieced together his surroundings. The echoes of dripping water indicated a possible source of sustenance. In this life-or-death moment, Pio rallied his energy. Crawling inch by inch, he advanced, each movement a testament to his determination. His fingers grazed the rough surface of a wall, and he paused, carefully analyzing his prison. In a moment of desperation, Pio inserted his finger into a small crevice, hoping for a sign, a way out. Pain shot through his finger as he withdrew it, his instinctive reaction bringing the wounded digit to his lips. Collapsing onto the ground once more, Pio's hope wavered. Before we continue, take a moment to answer the question of the day. What is the most important skill of an assassin? Comment down below for a chance to be shouted out. Now back to the recap. Exhausted after trying so hard, Pio Wool found himself lying on the ground. Someone who looked very much like him walked over. With a quick glance, Pio realized he was looking at his own reflection. A strange image appeared, resembling him. It asked Pio why he was struggling so much to survive in this situation. Pio could only stare in surprise, feeling the mockery in its gaze. The figment laughed at his efforts, making everything Pio did seem pointless. It tried to trick Pio into giving up, but Pio had other plans. He wanted to survive, no matter how tough things got. Even though the figment was trying to scare him, Pio was determined not to give in. Revenge fueled his will to live. Waking up from sleep, Pio wondered if the encounter was a dream or a sign of his growing madness, but he was determined. He got up again, his determination giving him strength. Walking over to the wall, he studied it closely once more. He spotted moss growing on the wall. Hunger made him decide to eat it, using anything he could to survive. Pio's resolve pushed him forward. Done with the moss, he used the wall for support as he got up. He began exploring the area, trying to figure things out. His calculations suggested he was in a space about 3 by 3 jangs in size. Someone had trapped him here, that much was clear. Suddenly he heard a sound, an iron door. It creaked open slightly, allowing some light in. Pio's heart raced as he saw a hand and a shadow. The hand left food in the room. Pio's keen sense of smell told him there were different types of food. That meant more than one person was involved in his capture, perhaps more than 5. Pio Wool, a captive in a dark place, figures out that he might not be alone in this misery. Others also seem to suffer like him. Hungry, he doesn't hesitate and digs into the food before him. As his hunger is satisfied, his face gains a renewed energy. He's been confined here, working on his body for the past 4 months, creating a routine around the daily food that arrives silently. In time, the darkness becomes more familiar, allowing him to spot even the crawling insects. Amidst his triumph, a snake slithers out of the shadows and wraps around his arm. Pio Wool, puzzled and frightened, is bitten within seconds. Agony courses through him and he clings to his arm, panic and fear painted across his face. The pain is unbearable, the area turns red and veiny, yet it doesn't ebb. A small door opens, offering his daily meal. He seizes it, distressed but determined to endure. He finishes eating, lying on the ground, the snake lurking nearby. Gradually his face regains a semblance of calmness as he gazes at the snake whose venom nearly killed him. After the detoxifying process, his vision improves. Stories of people gaining strength from snake bites cross his mind, leading him to a daring decision. He lets the snake bite him once more. His veins pop out, his body ignites with a different fire, less painful than before. As the pain subsides, his eye color changes. With enhanced vision, he sees the door vibrate and open for the first time. P.O. Wool steps out, entering the next room. A foul odor hits him as he opens the door, revealing a corpse as old as himself. He moves forward. After a while, he sees an iron door blocking the hallway, its bolts taken out. P.O. Wool forces it open and finds two people inside, a girl and a boy. P.O. Wool walks into the new room and sees them. He checks a room on his left, only to find a corpse. The girl, So Yowol, asks P.O. Wool who he is and where he comes from. She explains that she and the boy are the only survivors. P.O. Wool realizes she's not used to the darkness like him. He introduces himself and says he's trapped just like them. The girl, So Yowol, mentions more places like this in the dark. They introduce themselves. The boy, Song, and P.O. Wool move on, with P.O. Wool suggesting they follow him. So Yowol holds his hand for guidance. They reach another iron door, this time finding a bigger group of people. P.O. Wool looks around and realizes these people died differently, more from suicide than starvation. He notices more bowls and food compared to his area. So Yowol tells P.O. Wool that everyone on this side was trapped about 4 months ago too. P.O. Wool leads the group, and they find another iron door, but this time it leads to light. The group enters a village-like area with torches. They notice the structures were erected hastily. A white-haired, blue-eyed girl named Lee Min introduces herself and says she's under P.O. Wool's care. He wonders if snake bites caused his red eyes. Lee Min questions him, and P.O. Wool thinks about the snake bites. So Yowol interrupts and talks about sticking together as a group. P.O. Wool and Lee Min express their thoughts. P.O. Wool decides to see how things go, and Lee Min also joins the group. They all walk into the darkness, forming factions and groups. People are divided into 4 factions, while P.O. Wool remains alone. Rumours about P.O. Wool spread, but he doesn't pay attention. He examines the walls and notices the underground space was built long ago, suggesting immense wealth. A hole in the ceiling opens and a basket of food descends. The group rejoices and feasts on the food, rushing to get their fair share. The challenge had begun. The teams were tasked to divide the food equally, with their leaders working together. P.O. Wool was determined to take his share, but was stopped by Yom. P.O. Wool was furious and attacked Yom, causing a tense standoff. The others intervened, telling P.O. Wool to let Yom be. Despite this, P.O. Wool continued to hurt Yom, causing Yowol to step in and calm things down. As everyone ate, P.O. Wool realized that the test was meant to weed out the strongest children. Yobleton approached P.O. Wool, warning him of the consequences his actions could bring. The survival of their groups was at stake. Although P.O. Wool resisted, Yowol tried to convince him to join her faction. The situation escalated as members were found dead. Suspicion and paranoia grew, leading to more deaths. P.O. Wool worked alone, knowing that the peace wouldn't last. One day, a group approached, seeking revenge against P.O. Wool. Yom was with them, hungry for revenge. A snake attacked their adversaries, giving P.O. Wool an opportunity to fight back. Yom tried to manipulate him, but P.O. Wool saw through the lies. In a final confrontation, P.O. Wool overpowered Yom, defeating him. P.O. Wool stood before Yom's lifeless body, explaining that he did it because he was still weak. Yom's group was wiped out, and the other leaders found their bodies. The blame immediately goes to P.O. Wool for their murder in the dungeon. People start thinking about P.O. and his brilliant brains and brawn, and how cunning he's all around. His circumstances here are dire. Eventually, people need to be killed to save the already decreasing ration to ensure proper survival. Along with that, there is tension amongst the people as they are avoiding P.O. Wool too. In this family-like condition, news reaches the Go Youngsin faction that the Soyo faction has banished 2 kids from the Northern Red House and holds a necessary food item, a meager potato. And since food is scarce, everyone charges in on the kids as their aura changes to that of bloodthirsty barbarians. Yongsan only looks in shock. The 2 kids were Yongsin and his men. Into a narrow pathway with a girl whistling to give some kind of cue, the very next moment people from that faction jump out and attack the Youngsin faction. They have been trapped. Yongsan shouts that they have been trapped, but it is all too late. Suddenly even Yongsan himself is surrounded by these people with wooden bars. Then Sir Yowol and Song show themselves while being optimistic that they can eradicate this entire group. Yongsan looks at the 2 with utter rage in his eyes. He glares at them for a short while and then calms down, subsequently asking her if she will be satisfied after taking the wives of everyone to which she replies that if Yongsin takes her stead, he might as well do the same. With that, she gives her final order to kill everyone. Yongsan desperately tries to fight for his life as the rage in his eyes is prominent, but he is killed. Pure Wool is atop a building, analysing everything. He deduces that the current incident is into battle using terrains where one must use the buildings for strategic advantage over the other. He further extrapolates that the people who made this want the people to become customary to killing others, and that the huge house might belong to a large clan. That is why barging in recklessly is not an option. The reason everyone is here is that they are tools to be raised as assassins. Members of the Soyo faction are gladly discussing the people they killed and how their leader is the best regarding their survival. Li Min is sitting next to that rejoicing group and silently condemns their action. How can one so nonchalantly kill another person? She cries in shock and disgust. As per routine, the ceiling opens and food is given to the remaining survivors. The Suryo faction is in high spirits as no group remains to stop them. Pio Wool is standing near So Yellow, but with a concerned expression, and his distraught is valid as food is not given this time. But a group of hooded masked men jumps down to kill everyone here. They swing their weapons at every person they see, ensuring no one survives. Pio Wool knows something's going to happen, but he didn't expect it so soon. He usually stays quiet during fights. After a bit, more men appear, wearing robes and masks with numbers. Pio Wool says these masked men take orders from the numbered ones. The first guy, the first sword, talks tough. He's the boss now, no exceptions. Interrupting him means death. The first sword talks privately with someone. The first sword says if you put poison bugs together, they'll fight till one's left with the deadliest poison. He talks about tough kids surviving and being wicked. Yellow leads a big group. They need to weaken her. Chinwoo and Kang Il are martial arts pros. They talk about Pio Wool from a bad area, so he's different. The first sword wonders why the boss took this job. They can't leave any trace when they attack the Blood Shadow Groove. The third guy tells the kids to finish a mission. The third sword gives the kids an objective. The one who reaches the final house first will get a 2-hour break, while the last one to arrive will be put through torture. This harsh training goes on for days, turning them into assassins. Those who can't handle it will surely die. Yo-Wool stands out as a prodigy here, super talented. But then there's Pio Wool, considered just okay. Men keep an eye on him too. Pio Wool is reading the thunder-splitting cultivate invasion technique. Yowul doesn't bother him, having already learned enough. Yowul goes to sleep, but Pio Wool meditates. He remembers each step, gathers energy, and feels the Kai. Others learn it differently, but Pio Wool has his own goal. He wants faster, clearer thoughts. He doesn't want to stand out too much or be too plain. Even during training, he hides his true skill. But today, his opponent means business. The other kid sees through Pio's act. The instructor doesn't notice though. The opponent attacks hard, telling Pio Wool to do the same. Around Pio Wool, the opponent moves, throwing blades. But nothing works. Pio blocks everything. Pio Wool's patience is thinning. He throws his knife aside and kicks the opponent. The opponent coughs up blood and falls. The opponent tries again, but Pio breaks his arm. Everyone's surprised. The kids might be assassins in 5 years, not 7. But they know the target isn't ordinary. He's Seacon's most talented. Plans must be perfect, or the whole Blood Shadow group could crumble. The instructors keep talking about making the kids even better at what they do. Some might not make it, but the tough ones will. Pio Wool watches as his opponent falls. The instructors walk up to him and ask if he won. He nods, unsure. Suddenly one of them puts a sword right by his throat. It's so fast that Pio Wool can't believe it. Fear fills his eyes as he stares at the instructor. He wonders if he did something wrong. Then the instructor lowers the sword and tells him that a true assassin leaves no signs. Breaking someone's arm shows off skills, but it's dangerous. Pio Wool gasps for air after the instructor goes away. He's terrified. 6 years fly by. Training goes on. The instructors look for hidden kids, finding all except one, Pio. The instructors doubt the info they have. The last kid comes out and Pio, who's been hiding nearby, finally appears. He takes a break and sits with So Yul's group. Jeoksin greets him wearing a new face. So Yul talks about the food getting better, a sign they'll be admitted soon. Pio's eyes show determination. In his room, the first sword rests. Lim Sayol thinks about the other assassins. Only 30 out of 300 are left. Jianghu, where they live, is about survival. It's a place of kill or be killed, where you do whatever you can to stay alive. Lim found himself standing before the other 2 instructors, his mask removed. Confusion crossed their faces as they questioned his action. With a calm voice, Lim suggested they shed their masks too, unravelling their hidden identities. Together they huddled and spoke about their shared predicament, trapped, just like the children. The conversation shifted to the children, who were destined for an assassination mission. The trio understood that their only path to freedom was through this dark mission. They exchanged thoughts on the kids' progress, impressed that some surpassed even their own abilities. Yet a cloud of regret lingered. Wasting such talent after one use seemed like an unfortunate end. Amidst the grim discussion, Lim introduced a book onto the table. It marked the beginning of the final stage of training. With a purposeful return, they went back to Jangu, the camp leader, and the instructors explained the last task. 3 books lay before them, a test of skill. Out of 30 children, only 3 would master the martial art techniques within. The rest would take on the role of assassins, aiming to eliminate those who had acquired the knowledge. Silence blanketed the camp as shock rippled through the children. The instructor's proposal seemed absurd, their sanity questioned. The first sword broke the quietude, asserting that this marked the end of their training's enforcement. Post this task, they'd be left to their own devices until they departed. As thoughts swirled in the minds of the children, they debated the odds. Were the 3 stronger, or the 27? P.O. Wool, confident in the technique's potential, raised his hand to be the first to learn. Yet caution emerged from Yu Will, urging him against such a rash decision. Trouble would surely follow if he volunteered. And so, the hunt of the 27 began. 2 out of 3 who mastered the martial arts fell victim to their pursuers. Guilt gnawed at the remaining assassins, their choiceless fate weighing heavily. Amidst the turmoil, the elusive P.O. Wool emerged. He had vanished for days, last seen honing his sword skills with Samuel Jackson. In a desperate attempt, Jackson proposed a drastic solution, killing the instructors instead of P.O., but caution held them back. The instructors wouldn't allow the children free rein. Restrictions would remain, a reminder of their limitations. Deciding to focus solely on P.O. Wool, they moved ahead. P.O. sneaked up behind them, thinking that the instructors might chase them. To avoid any mistakes, P.O. decided to find out what the instructors were really up to. P.O. approached the instructor's heavily guarded base quietly, his mind racing. He used a clever mix of the turtle-breathing technique and the thunder-splitting cultivation technique. This let him stay hidden while moving, unlike the usual method where you could only hide while staying still. He got past the guards smoothly and entered the base. P.O. went deep into the base, searching with lots of questions in his mind. Finally, he found a scroll. Excited yet puzzled, he opened it. Inside was a shocking request, an assassination mission targeting someone named Wu Gun Sing. The mission spanned 7 years, with a huge reward of 500,000 gold yang. But there was a catch. No traces of the Blood Shadow group should be left behind. P.O. wondered who Wu Gun Sang was, that the group would spend 7 years training assassins to kill him. This made P.O. really angry. Just as P.O. was getting more curious about this strange mission, he heard footsteps approaching. It was the First Sword, the leader. The First Sword burst into the room, catching P.O. off guard. P.O. tried to hide everything and leave no evidence, but the First Sword sensed someone had been there. The First Sword told the Second and Third Swords that someone had broken in, and he ordered them to find the intruder. The Second and Third Swords condemned the act, realizing that only someone as skilled as P.O. could have pulled off such an infiltration. P.O., still hidden, listened carefully as they discussed what to do. They worried that punishing P.O. without evidence might lead to the children rebelling, so they decided to pin the blame on P.O. The First Sword says that he will use the Hell Flute. The other 2 swords are shocked. They say that it is kept as the last resort, but they might have to use it sooner or later. They want to show dominance over all the children and prove who their real owner is. The First Sword, Lim, takes off his mask and gets ready. He uses the flute. From up high he looks down at the crowd. At the same time, all the children are looking for P.O., while the swords discuss where he might be. The Hell Flute starts playing, and as the tune fills the air, they all feel like they're in agony. It's as if some kind of insect is eating away at their bodies. Just then, Peelwolf arrives and mentions that the instructors have activated the restriction they mentioned before. All the children are on the ground, trying to endure the pain after hearing the Hell Flute. CH 13. The sound of the flute is causing only slight discomfort for him, while everyone else is in terrible pain. He sits beside Li Min and tries a dangerous technique that infuses internal energy. He thinks it might work for her since she knows the thunder-splitting cultivation technique. Even though her internal energy isn't disturbed, she's still affected by the flute's sound. P.O. Wool wonders why he and the others are experiencing the effects differently. Could it be because of the snake poison he's resistant to? He also thinks about the possibility of curse poison being mixed in their food and water, triggering their pain through the flute's tune. The guards of the instructors arrive, but Pio Wool decides to stay, pretending he's suffering from the flute's sound just like the others. The first sword's sharp eyes caught a glint of Pio Wool among the children. Swiftly he drew his sword and thrust it towards the shoulder of the unsuspecting boy. The impact rendered the boy unconscious. Taking the opportunity, the first sword turned to Pio and demanded to know what he had seen in his room. Pio explained that until now he had managed to hide his extraordinary abilities, but his remarkable talent couldn't stay suppressed forever. Pio emphasized that someone as problematic as himself should be put out of the picture, suggesting that Pio was better off dead. But the second sword intervened, reminding them that Pio's skills were crucial for their assassination mission. His exceptional infiltration techniques were unmatched, making him an asset. The two swords exchanged sharp words, their disagreement evident. In the end, they decided against killing Pio immediately, opting instead to manipulate him in the future using a hell flute. It was clear that Pio's resistance was futile against the cursed poison. The antidote was administered to everyone. The first sword provided an explanation for the ordeal they had just experienced. Pio had infiltrated their hideout, causing the suffering they had endured. They emphasized that repeating such an action would lead to further agony. Meanwhile, Pio was in deep meditation, and it dawned on him that snake venom could counteract the cursed poison. In an isolated corner of their world, the other children searched for Pio, surprised by his choice to isolate himself for training. However, this seclusion was understandable as he was shunned by everyone. Pressing on, the group of children continued their journey. Unexpectedly, Pio appeared behind them, his presence carefully concealed. Yule confronted Pio, explaining that they were gathered to discuss the restriction. She deduced that he possessed an immunity to this restriction, raising questions about his true nature and abilities. Lin was convinced that someone had helped ease her pain during the restriction. She thought it might be Poe, and he admitted he knew about the binding restriction. He added that sharing this information wouldn't benefit him. Jackson called everyone his comrade, but Pio Wool disagreed due to recent conflicts. Then, they all made an oath to consider Pio Wool a comrade, and pledged not to betray him. Pio Wool finally revealed that it was the curse poison, a dangerous toxin. The poison stayed dormant, but reacted to the hell flute's sound waves, attacking the body. Luckily, Pio Wool was immune, so they needed to find a way to remove it. Everyone left except Li Min, who confided her real name, Li Sormin, to Pio Wool, hoping he'd remember. A faded day arrived, and the first sword announced their departure from the cave. Uold was tasked with leading the children outside. As the instructors left in baskets, joy spread among the kids. They were finally free from the grasp of the instructors. Pio Wool asked about the curse poison, and so Yule explained that some were cured, thanks to Li Min Suleiman's knowledge. The final step was leaving. The bucket descended, and they all climbed on board, reminiscing about their 7 years of hardship. Approaching the exit, Pio Wool tore his sleeve and blindfolded himself. He instructed everyone to do the same to prevent blindness from the intense light. After a painful struggle, they emerged into the bright world outside. Captain Gu Juyang of the Blood Shadow group met with them, swiftly ordering his men to usher everyone into carriages destined for Clearwind Manor. Their lives were to be reshaped to match the ways of the outside world. Even with his blindfold, Pio memorized the captain's voice. The carriages journeyed through mountainous terrain, finally arriving at their destination. Every person was warned. Any lapse in vigilance would cost them their life, following the captain's command. Rooms were allocated for each person, 3 to a space. Outside, Pio Wool finally took the chance to cleanse himself, relishing a moment that had been denied for so long. The sense of relaxation and enjoyment filled the air, but the instructors swiftly reminded them of their purpose, providing weapons that shattered their newfound peace. Amidst the serenity of Clear Breeze District's Great Moon Palace, Juyang and Lim shared tea. Juyang expressed gratitude for Lim's dedication and sacrifices toward the mission's goal. With assigned tasks complete, Lim's retirement was approved, along with the other 2 swords. A pang of regret swept over Lim, believing these gifted children deserved more than just a disposable mission. Juyang countered that destiny had already been written. Discussion shifted to the mission's sponsor. Doe's knowledge was limited, deeming it unwise to provoke a benefactor who paid generously. The goal was clear: elevate the Blood Shadow group to the level of the notorious 100-rate Union. Among the children, preparations for the mission buzzed. Pio Wool confessed his trembling anticipation. The latter desired to unleash pent-up frustration by taking lives. An order summoned them, clutching weapons for a secretive movement. Led by the 4th sword, they maneuvered through the forest until halted at a cliff's edge. Their objective unfolded: scale a mountain, infiltrate a structure mirroring their current residence, and strike a building within the Moon Palace. Fueled by fury and determination, they yearned to reclaim the site reminiscent of their agonizing underground prison. In a tranquil garden, young Seol Ran walked alone. The elderly master of brilliance approached. The leader questioned Seol's solitude, provoking a standoffish response. Seol's life was intertwined with the ongoing matter, causing her discomfort. The leader's anger flared at Seol's apparent arrogance, recounting the numerous favors she'd granted. Despite this, Seol dared to seek exemption, an act that further stoked the leader's ire. She tries to soothe her nerves and says that it's a student's duty to follow their master. The leader adds that if they don't get an answer today, their plan, 7 years in the making, will be put into action. She acts this way due to stress. Suddenly, another woman named Zhonghua arrives with news from King Xing. They've received the proposal they wanted, and the fate of the Amaze sect rests on the young Seol's performance. She assures the leader she'll do well, but all they can offer is pitying looks. Zhonghua asks how they should handle the assassination plan. The leader is unsure. On the side, a man named Pio rests, but he feels something's wrong. An enemy spear hits one of Pio's fellow assassins. Pio looks on in shock. An assassin hidden underground is forcibly brought up by an enemy named Yuginok. It's clear the assassins are under attack. Yuginok orders his soldiers to find and defeat the invading enemies from the King Qing sect. The assassins realize they're at a disadvantage and decide to retreat. As the King Qing soldiers search for them, the assassins escape and regroup. The King Qing soldiers are furious and chase after them. Suddenly, Yuginok hurls a spear, killing an airborne assassin. He takes down 3 more with his projectiles. The only one left is Pio Wool. Yuginok goes up against Pio Wool, but Pio Wool kicks the spear away just in time. He then kicks it back towards the enemies. As everyone watches, Pio Wool launches an attack, killing each soldier one by one. Yuginok narrowly avoids a spear grazing his face. Pio Wool knows the situation is dire, so he decides to retreat. Yuginok tries to follow, but he notices an injured assassin. Despite the assassin's plea for mercy, Yuginok kills him, stating that the group had invaded the Qingxing sect. Pio Wool kept running, thoughts swirling in his mind like leaves caught in a gust. He figured someone had given away their secrets to the enemy. The fourth sword and his henchmen had vanished before the ambush. It seemed likely they aimed to wipe out all evidence. The assassins were cut down, and suddenly a barrage of arrows rained toward Pio Wool. Some struck his chest, but still questions haunted his thoughts. He pondered if the Blood Shadow group had abandoned them, deciding to survive alone. The army spotted him, prompting a leap into the river for escape. Once on the shore, he found instructions etched into rocks, stained with blood. He realized this wasn't a simple trap. Many clans were involved in the hunt, not just the Blood Shadow group. Then, Li Min launched an attack on Pio Wool. He barely held on, relieved to see her alive. Li Min, however, was weakened, collapsing due to serious injuries. Pio Wool questioned her about the other assassins, learning most were dead. Soyawol and Song Tianwu's fate remained uncertain as they scattered. Li Min and a few others tried saving their own, leading to their downfall. Pio Wool gently laid Li Min down, helpless in the face of her impending death. She asked him to stay by her side till the end. As she lay there, Li Min found solace in not facing death alone. She wished for justice to prevail, wondering who was behind their plight. And as the world darkened around them, she mused that destiny had led them to this point. Their struggles had united them, and now it seemed fate had intertwined their fates with death. The question of who orchestrated this torment echoed in her fading thoughts. What will happen next? Find out next time by staying tuned for our future recaps. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great recaps.